I'm going to live with my mother and sister from today. Of course you have no complaints. There's no place for you in this house. My husband's.
Earth pierced my chest like a blade of ice, and at that moment, it felt like the world had stopped. All the blood drained from my body, and I felt as if the ground was crumbling away. My hands trembled as I prepared dinner, and the strength to hold the knife faded. I also heard the sound of cutting vegetables, and silence echoed in the kitchen. Until this morning, my husband had sent me off with a smile, saying, "I'm going, as usual," but last night he ate dinner and said it was delicious. Why is he suddenly speaking to me in such a cold voice? The sound of the lock opening echoed abnormally loudly. Behind my husband, who was standing at the entrance, were my mother-in-law and my mother-in-law, with triumphant expressions on their faces. "Oh, what are you taking so long to do? Get out of there." My husband pushed me aside roughly, and carried large suitcases into the house one after another. The impact was so intense that it made my heart pound. A cold sweat ran down my back from the impact, and my hands trembled and searched for the wall, desperately trying to support my body. My whole body trembled and felt unstable as if I was standing on ice. Suddenly, the sound of a drawer being roughly opened and the sound of a heavy object, Tosa, falling to the floor echoed from the second floor. Wait a minute. As I was about to climb the stairs, my husband stood before me. His eyes held a cold light I had never seen before. "You can throw away all your things. From now on, this is a place for us, a real family only." My throat tightened. I was overcome by such a feeling that I couldn't speak. What should I do from now on? My name is Tanaka Miki. I got married 3 years ago, and I live with my husband. Even though I work for a company, even if my husband and I combine our earnings, it's still a dream to be able to buy a house and pay the loan. Even a used house is impossible. In fact, this house is the house my grandparents lived in. My grandmother passed away 4 years ago, and my grandfather, who was always sick, decided to live with my parents because he thought it would be impossible for him to live alone. We decided to move in as newlyweds because we didn't want to leave the house as it is without anyone else. The rent is also quite cheap compared to other houses of the same type. The reason it's so clean considering its age is because my father renovated it as a wedding gift. I'm so grateful to my grandfather for being able to live in this 2-story house with a spacious living room at such a low rent. Hey, since we've come to live in a house, I want to buy a pet. I've always dreamed of buying a cat. Is that possible? I asked him when we were newlyweds.
Sorry, that's not possible. I've always hated cats, and my whole family hates them too. It's not that I'm allergic to them, but I just can't bring myself to like them, my husband replied with a sour look on his face. Judging from his expression, I had given up on the idea of getting a cat. My husband and family are against them, but I and my parents are all weirdos. There are 7 of us living together: my parents, my older brother's family, my grandfather, and we also have 4 cats. All 4 of them were abandoned or stray cats that we picked up from the neighborhood and kept. We love them like family, and I love them too. Even after getting married, I still go to my parents' house to see the cats. But my husband never shows up at my parents' house because of the cats. Even when we were introducing ourselves as a married couple, the cats were so scared that they would just get scared when they got close to us. My parents are considerate of my husband, so Kenta, you hate cats. But it's okay. I told them that my cats are all good and won't bite or scratch me, but they would threaten me because there used to be a lot of stray cats living near my parents' house, and they would leave mice in the house, and I was just scared. Even so, both myself and my family hate cats. My father and mother were astonished at my husband clinging to my shoulders. I was living a busy life but felt happy, but there was one thing that made me anxious. It was my mother-in-law and my daughter-in-law. My mother-in-law is almost 60 years old and my mother-in-law is 36 years old. They live very close to my husband and I, and both work part-time at different supermarkets. They should have a monthly income, but they come to my husband asking for money every time I turn them down, and they're so rich that they're like butterflies. They don't earn enough to live a luxurious life, but they spend money one after another. I know that my husband will definitely give it to me when we run out. My husband pays for my mother-in-law's apartment so that we can rent my grandfather's house cheaply, so I pay for all the money we need to live. I honestly don't know why he is working for them, such as utility bills, food expenses, and occasional dining out expenses. I always want you to stop helping your mothers after your mother-in-law. It's weird that you pay all the rent. It's not like we live together. When I say that, my husband says, but my mother and I are always whining about not giving her money. When I get emotional, I think that if we could solve it with money, it would be fine. They both rely on my money to live, so if they stop the spat now, they will have no place to live. I'm worried about them. I felt that even if I pushed my husband too hard, things would probably not get better.
So I stopped saying anything more. But the situation just got worse and worse. What's this? This hamburger steak isn't hard. It's also quite salty and looks bad for your health. Do you always feed Kenta like this? But Mom, look at this. The green onions aren't cut. Didn't you say that you were proud of your cooking when you spoke about your marriage? You're not good at it at all. Also, please make one more dish because it's not enough. My mother-in-law and Kaori, who came to eat dinner every day, said this and ate all the food I prepared. I prepared rice, green onions, miso soup with tofu, hamburger steak, salad, and even stew, but it's still not enough. As a full-time employee, I have a hard time making dinner for just 2 people every night. However, before I knew it, my mother-in-law and Kaori started treating our house as a free restaurant and the effort and food expenses doubled. Moreover, they complain about small things like this, and they eat the food messily while saying that it doesn't taste good, the amount is small, and whether I like it or not. They eat everything that is served on the table without even leaving a drop of stew. My husband eats next to them, shrinking down, but he doesn't say anything to help me. He just silently puts the food in his mouth. I feel sad every time they reject my cooking. Even though I make cheap food to fill up our stomachs in order to cut down on living expenses, my mother-in-law and Kaori-san complain and steal my side dishes and leave them in a mess. And my husband can't say anything about it. As dinner time approached, I felt like I was being overwhelmed by frustration and sadness. On weekdays, it was only dinner, but on weekends it was the worst. On weekends, I slept well and was in pain, but when the intercom rang at 8 a.m., they said they had come to eat breakfast and I had to open it. Then, I prepared some simple bread and fried eggs and coffee, and they quickly finished it off and lay on the sofa until noon and took a nap. On a nice day, I would like to choose a sofa cover and put all the cushions outside to dry in the sun, but with their big bodies occupying it, I can't do anything. Furthermore, I want to vacuum on weekends, which I can't do on weekdays, but as soon as I turn on the vacuum cleaner, it's gone. Elsa, you can do that on weekdays. You're so loud you can clean when we're tired and sleeping. You're not being considerate enough. Todoroki, the two of them woke up around noon, so please order some takeout. I want to eat ramen. Male. I like collecting miso-chan, but I suggest that you two go out together because it seems like there are no mistakes in doing delivery around here, so it's troublesome. Then, Mi-san, please make me any kind of ramen. I'll use frozen gyoza. Put bean sprouts and spicy miso in my miso stew. Also, I don't like packaged noodles, so I'll use fresh noodles. I'm being selfish. Even when I ask my husband for help, he uses it as a means and goes back to his room. I was treated like a fire government, and my heart was worn out and my smile gradually decreased. One day, while we were spending time together, my husband said he was going out alone. I thought I should go with him. I said that we don't usually have a leisurely date together, but he said no, he was just called by someone from work and would be back soon, and he hurriedly left. I thought it was strange that he doesn't usually do that. But from that day on, my husband went out on his days off as if he was missing his mother-in-law. Work is hard for you, too. Mi-san will be lonely if you go out on your days off. We'll live together. Such a big, beautiful house is nice. There are still plenty of rooms left. It's a waste not to use them. My mother-in-law made a ridiculous proposal, so I tried desperately to avoid it. This room has been renovated, so it's beautiful. The room over there is still old. Moreover, it's still in my grandfather's name, so I can't just let your mothers live there. Kita is paying for your mother's apartment, isn't it? So wouldn't it be better if they just stayed there? When I said that, my mother-in-law looked nonchalant and said, Kita doesn't pay for our apartment, but did you say that? Well, it doesn't matter. We'll live in this house, even if the rooms are old. Let's move on with the matter. It's not like my grandfather would say no if you say it's okay. And she said that and left. When my husband came back from going out that night, I asked him about what we met today, and he said, no, I don't know anything about living together, but I pay into your mother's account every month. I wonder if there's something wrong. And so I got into the real story. Both my husband and my mother-in-law were saying different things. I tried to think about what it meant, but I couldn't find an answer. I was relieved that my husband didn't know about the cohabitation, but I could only say yes to the direct plea from my mother-in-law. I was at my wit's end. There was no way we could live together. There was no way I could ignore the free Mars. I decided to visit my parents' house the next day, thinking that there was no point in worrying anymore. Oh, it's not Misa. What's wrong with you? You're so skinny. Come here, Dad. When I arrived at my parents' house and stepped in, my mother cried out in surprise. I heard the footsteps of my father, brother's wife, and 2 nephews, 5-year-old Masato and 3-year-old Kita, coming in a hurry. Everyone looked at me. Hey, Misa, are you on a diet? You're so skinny you look like Mira from Egypt. My brother, who has never had a shred of delicacy, saw me and shouted, and my brother's wife, Keiko-chan, who was next to me, said, "You're an idiot." Misa-chan was originally thin and beautiful.
But I'm sure Misa-chan is kind. A good girl is always on my side.
Yes, Misa, I'm a skinny adult. I'll fight. I want to beat you too.
Masato, who is completely into his body, swings his hero body weapon around. Next to him, he imitates his younger brother, Kita, and swings a small weapon around. Keiko-chan immediately picks him up and takes the 2 of them to the back. For now, MIE. So, Mom, give him protein, nutrients, and things like that. Everyone says this and worries about me. My family is a little strange, but they are kind-hearted and I always feel warm when I come here. When I was led to the living room, my pet cats came to greet me. They sniffed me and then showed me their bellies and stroked me. I felt how much I was loved and tears overflowed.
Hey, tissue. Misa, Dad is going to cry too. What's wrong? Tell me. I
told my parents, who were in a panic after seeing my tears, and my brother, who was worried about my mother-in-law, about the plan to live together. For a while, everyone looked up at the sky with their arms around their shoulders, thinking, but suddenly my father said loudly, "Mito-san.
I have a really good idea." Quote.
After everyone quietly listened to my father's story, everyone agreed to go with it, and the plan was put into action. After a while, my husband told me that my mother-in-law and mother-in-law were going to live together in our house. Actually, the apartment's renewal is waiting, and neither of them said they don't have to pay the renewal fee. I can't pay such a large amount either. So I'm sorry, but I'd like to ask you to live together for a while. In the end, my husband, who was strongly persuaded by the 2 of them, immediately agreed to live together. Just as the apartment renewal deadline was about to end, they cancelled the house contract and showed up with their moving luggage. From today, this house is our house, and you will clean it well, do the laundry, and prepare meals without fail. Also, please do your research so that you can get ramen delivered in the future. My mother-in-law came to me as usual, arrogantly. Furthermore, I didn't really care if we lived together, but I came here because the living expenses I had been contributing up until now would be free. So I will never contribute money to the house and I have no intention of getting married, so please be nice to me. I didn't invite her, and I didn't ask her to come. I don't know where this story came from, but I'm always surprised by Kao's selfish thinking. He's 36 years old, 4 years older than me, but he can't do housework or cooking properly, so he probably can't get married. I glance at my husband, and our eyes meet. He immediately looks away from me and pretends to look into the distance. I've been talking a lot about the 2 of them moving lately, but I've realized all too well that it's no use saying anything to this person. He predicts that I'll get into trouble in front of me, and in front of my mother-in-law and others. He talks arrogantly and bullishly, saying things like, back quote, don't make your mother or Kaori feel bad from today on. He's a weak man who can't even express his own opinion. No, maybe my mother and Kaoru are too strong. If I were to compare these two to the enemies of the hero's body, Kaoru would be a mouthy butt alien. Whatever my mother-in-law says, she's the same concrete wall alien. I might be able to defeat either of these two alone, but they always act in pairs, so there's no opening for an attack. However, there are 7 heroes protecting me behind me. I've anticipated this situation. I said to my mother, "Of course, you're welcome. It'll be fine with my family." I was surprised when I said that with a big smile on my face, but I was so shocked by how much I felt. On the day I went to my parents' house, my father suggested that I name him, and if you're okay with it, then I'll be okay with it too, right? Kita-kun hasn't even paid the rent for that house. He's not even paying the living expenses, but he's living with his family. If he's okay with it, then he's okay with it too. I'll take my grandpa and all 7 of us plus 4 cats and charge in. Our 7 family members plus the cat will be living together in our house.
My husband turned pale when he heard that, and both my mother-in-law and Kaori froze in shock. Huh? What's that? I didn't hear that. Mom said it, didn't she? We're not going to move because the living expenses are free and dinner is included. Kaori started complaining, pouting. Her anger was directed at my mother-in-law. But my mother-in-law didn't know the reason either, and the plan was for Misa to live with us because she was looking after her. Explain it to me. I wanted to ask her if she was looking after her, but I held back and listened. No, I've never heard that before either. Hey, Misa, don't decide something like that on your own. It's crazy to think about your family without consulting me. Tell her that you can't do that and leave.
My husband came to me with a confused look on his face. I'll say exactly what he said back to her. I thought the same thing about you. You ignored me and kept telling me to do something about it. And then you made my mother and my mother live with me without my permission. It's weird that I'm the only one being blamed for doing the same thing as you. That's why we're moving in with the whole family. When I said that, the front door slammed open and my parents and my older brother's family came in, escorting my grandfather. My grandfather, who has mild dementia, was overjoyed to be back in his old home. He didn't seem to understand the situation, but he headed to the room he used to use. The window facing south that my mother-in-law was going to use had a view of the large garden and a nice breeze in the evening. My grandfather took a deep breath, lay down on the tatami mat, and started taking a nap. This was my room. My mother used to use this room when my grandfather was healthy, despite my mother-in-law who was about to cry. It brings back memories. Look, he's taking a nap with such a calm face. So this is my grandfather's room. He said, "Let's carry the nursing bed and nursing pills," and was excited. What is this? Kaoru-san was shouting loudly, so I went to see it and Misato and Kita were pointing their weapons at me and taking a fighting stance. You are the one who sucked Misa's nutrients. Let's beat the fat alien. We'll protect Misa. They were serious and trying to beat Kao-san. I don't mean to say anything about people's body shapes, but Kao-san is definitely a lot luckier than other people. This tendency may have become even stronger since he started eating my food. However, he is very proud and thinks he is as skinny as me, so he often said, "Please lend me Misa-san's clothes." I was proud that my two nephews were fighting for me, but Kao-san glared at me, so I gave them snacks and stopped playing for a while. Wait a minute. This time it was my husband's scream. When I went towards the sound, I saw 4 cats from my parents' house being released from a carrier bag. I've already
made an escape hat for the exit, so it's okay. I smiled and let the cats into the house one after another, saying that they are good cats. They are all calm and are old, so they start exploring the house at the same time. No, as I said before, I hate cats, so we can't live together. My husband said this while sweating, and my father said that even my daughter can't live with your mother and sister, and bowed his head to you many times. But that didn't happen. Why should only my daughter have to endure it? Do you have a problem? As expected of my father. I didn't like the idea of putting the cats and my mother-in-law on the same level, but I couldn't stop applauding in my heart that it was exactly right. From that day on, the two families started living together in a strange way. I'm sure this is something that has never been asked in the history of Japan. However, my family quickly got used to the environment and lived at their own pace. My grandfather was at a short-stay facility, so he was away during the day. Since everyone was working during the day, I made it my job to make dinner. My parents and my brother's family kept a monthly allowance for food, so I ended up cooking for 7 people plus my husband, and I asked my mother-in-law and Kaori if they would pay for the food, but I never heard anything about taking money. They told me to cook it for free, so I said that's not possible if we're living together, and refused. When 9 meals were lined up on the table, my mother-in-law and Kaori came over, attracted by the smell, but there was no food for themselves. When they noticed, they left with a sulky look on their face. Of course, they didn't forget to glare at me. I'm sure they couldn't say anything to me because my parents were there. The two of them couldn't cook, so they bought food from somewhere and ate it every day. However, it seemed that they quickly ran out of money, and I often noticed that the rice I had cooked was gone. After 2 weeks of living together like this, I heard my mother's loud voice, so I went over. Then, "Hey, we're all living together, so please use the toilet and bathroom a little more cleanly. The room is overflowing with garbage because they haven't cleaned it at all. If our cats accidentally eat it, it will be a disaster, so please do some housework." My mother started lecturing them because my mother-in-law and mother-in-law are living such a messy life. That's
right. I wish they would stop putting the laundry in our laundry without letting us know. It's too brazen to ask them to hang it out to dry after picking it up. I want them to wash their own laundry. I pay Atomy for living expenses. Living expenses are not insignificant with 2 more people. My brother's good wife is also angry with me. With my strongest ally by my side, the harassment and bad-mouthing of me has stopped, but those 2 are not getting away with it. Her anger is directed at her husband. "Misa, kick out your family. You are the owner of this house, so you have that much authority." I accidentally overheard my mother-in-law and husband talking. It's impossible. I can't even pay the rent for this house. Moreover, this house
belongs to that old man, so I have no rights. My mother-in-law was even talking to my husband behind the scenes to get things the way they want. This continued, and my husband got fed up with it, and eventually he stopped coming home for dinner. He couldn't tell his parents, who didn't want to bother him, face to face, so he finally came home when we were asleep. I didn't particularly mind, thinking that was his answer. However, at the time, I didn't realize that my parents were looking at my husband, who came home late at night every night, with suspicious eyes. After a year of living together, my mother-in-law and Kaori came to me, who was making dinner in the kitchen, which was unusual. My parents and my brother and his wife hadn't come home yet, so I was the only one in the kitchen. "Misa, can I just say something?" They slowly approached me with a nasty smile on their faces. I had a bad feeling about this, but I stopped and turned to them. "You and your family are officially going to leave this house. I want you to leave right away, but I'll give you 3 days." The two of them looked down at me confidently and started talking. Why are these people, who are old and have never paid their living expenses, so confident? Don't they understand that there are people who are in trouble and inconvenience because of their behavior? I started talking, saying that I would explain as many times as necessary. As I have told you many times, this house belongs to my grandfather. As I started to talk, my mother-in-law thrust a piece of hair in front of me. It was a document called a contract. I knew that for a long time. But you see, my grandfather said he really wanted to give this house to me, so I had no choice but to go through the procedures. When I read the contract carefully, it said that my grandfather was handing over the rights to this house to my mother-in-law. Moreover, it said that he was handing it over to my mother-in-law to show her gratitude for all the care she had given him in his daily life. My mother-in-law has no intention of having any relationship with my grandfather. That is because he took away the room that she liked and tried to make her own, but she even signed and attached this nonsense document to my grandfather. This is a formal document. I
can't turn it over anymore. This house is now officially my mother's. My mind went blank and I collapsed on the spot. My grandfather has dementia, so he can't tell right from wrong. It's so easy for my mother-in-law to get close to us and sign and seal the prescription. It's because I consulted everyone that this happened. If this house is taken over, all of my grandfather and grandmother's precious memories will be rewritten. No, maybe this house itself will be demolished or sold. When I was little, we often set off fireworks and ate watermelon in the large garden of this house. It was a place I loved because it was a place where relatives and neighbors gathered. I destroyed it all. Tears were gathering in my eyes and I felt like they would spill out if I moved my head a little. As I sat there in a daze, my father came home from work. He ran over to me to ask what was wrong with our unusual atmosphere and said, "You're a good person." My grandfather wanted to give me the rights to this house, but I refused at first. But I really wanted to sign it. My mother-in-law handed my father the contract with a big smile. My mother-in-law smiled vulgarly and waited for my father's reaction. I was so hurt that I vomited. My father took the contract and stared at it for a while, thinking silently. I see. He saw this and thought that he was the reason the rights to this house were handed over to him. Yes. If I hadn't consulted with my fathers, I wouldn't have handed this house over to them. So I felt so sorry that I finally burst into tears. Despite this situation, my father was there for me without blaming me. It would have been better if he had been more angry and asked me what I had done. As I was thinking about this, my father smiled and said, "It's okay." He put his hand on my shoulder and said, "This contract is complete nonsense." Single quote.
Then my mother-in-law spat out as if she was excited and charged at my father. "Oh, unfortunately, this is a formal contract. Please be careful. It is a signature that your grandfather wrote himself, so it will never be overturned." My mother-in-law is full of confidence. Kao-san is also grinning unpleasantly. "You don't
understand anything, do you? I am the owner of this house. Not my father."
We were both left with our mouths open for a while, unable to move, at the truth that I didn't know either. Didn't you say that this house belongs to my grandfather? I always thought so.
When I said that, my father told me that this house was originally inherited from my grandmother's parents' house. The current name of the house has always been my grandmother, and after she passed away, my father took over. So this house belongs to my father. He told me that it has never belonged to my grandfather. My heart suddenly became lighter, and all my tears disappeared. I'm glad. I'm really glad. Contrary to me, who was smiling, my mother-in-law and Kao-san's faces were turning paler and grim. Well, even if it was Moshi-chan's property, he's been diagnosed with dementia, so this isn't valid. Okay, I'll go to the police and sue him for forgery of documents. My father, mother-in-law, and Kaori-san finally stand up, huddle together, and look up at my father with frightened expressions. I'm home. My husband comes home at the perfect time and comes into the kitchen. Welcome home. You're early today. I'm about to rush over when my mother-in-law stands up. Kenta, help me. We might get caught by the police. Do something. Saying that, Yoshimo clings to me. My husband doesn't know what's going on and panics, dropping the phone he was holding. The smartphone just slips in between me and Kaori-san. I happen to see the message Ron has received and I quickly take it away. The name is Rin, and the face of a woman who seems to be Kan. Rin, I love you, Kita. My hands are shaking as I hold the smartphone. It's a message of love to my husband. Who are you, Rin? A woman named Rin has sent me a message saying she loves me. My husband was surprised by my words and reached out to take back his smartphone. However, he
couldn't move or get close because my mother-in-law's big body was holding him. Pilon. I ignored my husband who couldn't move and continued reading the message. Next time, let's get divorced quickly and live together. Because you're going to divorce me and be with this person? No, my husband was vague about the answer, and my father interrupted him. Misa, you know that Kita-kun has been coming home late recently, right? He came home smelling of perfume, and I was worried that you and Mom had been cheating on me. So I asked the renewal office to investigate for the past week. This is the result. My father took out the investigation documents from his work bag and spread them on the table. There were many photos of my husband entering a hotel with the woman in the icon, and the two of them walking together with their arms around each other. I picked up each photo and the tears that had just subsided earlier started to well up again. The last thing my husband did to me, even though I was so worried about my mother-in-law, was to have an affair. Tears flowed endlessly and tears leaked out. Both my mother-in-law and Kao-san took the photo and said, Kenta, cheating is what a terrible person would do. You should apologize to Misa-san properly. You're the worst, big brother, so bad. Even the two of them blamed their husbands. According to Sarashi's investigation, it seems that Kenta and this woman's relationship started several years ago. It seems that they are quite inseparable, and it has been reported that Kenta is making all the payments. So it's a lie that he said he was paying for the apartment for his mother's and he
was giving it to this woman? It's terrible that he left all the rent and living expenses of this house to me instead. Everyone waited for my husband's next words. With everyone's eyes on him, my husband said, "I'm
going to marry Rin-chan. I want to break up with Masaki and make Rin-chan my wife."
I was stunned by my husband's serious words. When I think that I've been married to such a man for so long, I feel more foolish than sad.
Then you all get out of this house. I put up with it and let her stay at home because I'm Misa's husband and her parents. But you know, someone who hurts my cute daughter so much and wants to marry another woman has no right to be here. My mother-in-law and Kaori should apologize to Kenta, even though they're scared of my father's anger. I'll
get Misa to forgive me and let me stay here.
Hey, big brother. Break up with that woman and start over with Misa. The two of them desperately try to convince their husbands not to be kicked out of the house. But my husband has already made up his mind. Rin-chan has been waiting for me even though she knew I was married. I can't betray her purity anymore. I know that dating a married man is not pure at all, but I don't want to worry about my husband and his family anymore, and I started to think that it would be easier if I just let it flow. Anyway, I want to divorce Misa as soon as possible. Rin already has my child in her belly. My mother-in-law collapsed from the floor when she heard those words. Then I can't continue living in this house anymore. Where does that child live? ? Near here. At first glance, my mother-in-law doesn't have any thoughts of my husband or baby in her mind. She's just looking for a place to control herself. Of course she'll be living alone in a one-room apartment. She's already quitting her job because she's pregnant. She also says she doesn't want to live with my mother or Kaori, so please find an apartment somewhere. My husband coldly says this. My mother-in-law and Kaori, who have been cut off from their lifeline, show a sympathy like never before. Then where should we live? I came here because you said we could live here. Ah. You were the ones who asked me to let you live in your house because you cancelled the apartment contract without asking. Don't blame me for everything. Unlike my previous husbands. Seeing him never bending his will makes me realize that he is serious. He also put this into his married life with me. I get it. I won't ask Kita anymore. My mother-in-law says this and now she comes to me. Misa-san, can't you just leave us here like this? I can't give you living expenses, but I think you can at least do the housework. Kaoru. Kaoru-san clearly doesn't like it. Mom, I can't have you here any longer. If we keep the criminal who deceived my grandfather in the house any longer, it will be a nuisance to our family. So I'll give you 3 days to move in with Kita's new wife. My mother-in-law reluctantly agreed, but my husband is still unhappy. However, we can't keep them there any longer. My husband had already filled out the divorce papers because he intended to divorce me. I filled them out right away and said I would submit them to the city hall tomorrow, so I took them in. 3 days later, my mother-in-law, Kaoru-san, and my husband moved into the one-room apartment of the woman he had an affair with, as promised. I couldn't imagine how they would survive, but they moved out without a hitch, so I felt relieved. With the advice of my parents and my brother and his wife, I also filed for compensation. I filed for both my husband and the woman he had an affair with, and they paid the full amount immediately. In particular, my husband even went into debt to pay it. I couldn't decide whether to see this as sincerity or as a severance payment. After this, my husband and the woman he had an affair with remarried soon after. Apparently, he wanted to make sure he had a seat before the baby was born. However, his mother-in-law, who had started living with him, continued to pay the bills and pushed all the housework onto the woman he had an affair with. She didn't even contribute to the living expenses. She complained about the cooking and used it on him even though she was pregnant. The woman was angry at the two of them and immediately returned to her parents' house, and they broke up despite having made a seat. Although the baby was born safely, they divorced soon after. Apparently, they were told that the mothers-in-law would come anyway, and they were not allowed to see the baby. After that, they demanded child support, and he continued to pay it even though he was in debt every month. Even after all that, my husband couldn't leave his mothers-in-law and continued to live with them, doing as he was told. His debts also grew, his salary was taken by the two, and he was always living with no money. His parents and older brother's family returned to the house they had originally lived in after they had kicked out his mothers-in-law. I decided to continue living alone in my grandfather's house. The house is too big for me to live alone. Thinking back, this will be the first time I've ever lived alone. I remember the days when I lived with so many people, and sometimes I feel so lonely that I want to cry. When I was talking about this to my mother, she told me that her mother's friend, who runs a cat protection group, had a kitten that she couldn't find a home for, and suggested that I go and see it. As a cat lover, I jumped at the idea. First, we went to an adoption event to see how well it would go with the cat. My mother made a big fuss about how cute this kitten was, as if she was going to take it away from her. Even though I told her that my mother wasn't going to buy it, I was also fired up about the cat. My mother's friend finally arrived. This way. I followed my friend and saw a small, round black lump with two round eyes inside a big detective. That's rare, a black cat. That's right. All the other kittens had homes, but strangely, no one had asked for this one. Even though it was so cute. I answered immediately that I would choose this child. When I met Kuroniko-chan's eyes, I saw her as I was holding back tears after being bullied by my stepmothers. Her eyes looked frightened, but also as if she expected a bright future. I felt that I had to brighten this child's future. Then, a new partner was born into my new life. Her name was Kuroda. My 5-year-old nephew Masato gave her this name. When I asked her the origin of the name, she said that she just combined the name Kuroda and her younger brother Kita's other parts. Masaki Kuroda come to play. With that, my parents and older brother started coming over to our house frequently. Lively dinner parties have become a regular event on weekends. Thanks to my family, I'm no longer lonely. I've once again realized how important my family is to me, who have supported me. I've resolved to continue to live honestly, cherish my family, and live life the way I want to.